Chapter 16. Bewildered and suddenly uneasy, Ranofer stared about him at a room luxurious beyond his wildest imaginings. On its polished floor was a rug of many colors. Chairs made of fragrant cedar wood adorned with gold stood here and there. Their cushions were fine linen stuffed with down, light as bubbles and incredibly soft to the touch. In one corner there was a folding stool with a leopard pelt thrown over it. It was made of ebony inlaid with ivory, and its legs were carved into the shape of a leopard's clawed feet. On a low table in the center of the room stood a flower-twined wine jar and a goblet bluer than the sky. Beside them, a basket was heaped with fruit and honey cakes. Ranofer's empty stomach growled dismally. Saliva flooded his mouth and he swallowed, turning away from the food. Where had the dwarf gone? Had his taste meant nothing but disbelief after all? Perhaps he had decided Ranofer was lying and had been frightened at his own interference with the overseer's orders, and had simply abandoned the project, leaving Ranofer to be discovered by the next servant to step into this room, whereupon the alarm would be raised again and the chase start all over. Aghast at this new danger, Ranofer was still trying to decide whether to flee or hide when he heard hurrying footsteps in the hall. An instant later, Ranofer appeared in the doorway. "Come, rash one," the little man said grimly. "We are going to see the queen, and may the gods of Egypt help you and me if you are lying." He pulled a dazed and awe-struck Ranofer out into the hall and down it a few paces to a broad square archway, through which they passed into another chamber. A soldier, but not Ranofer's enemy, the captain, stood erect beside a doorway in the far wall. Ignoring him completely, the dwarf opened the door and pushed Ranofer through a small anteroom with a shining floor and linen-hung walls, which was occupied by two more sentries. One of these stepped forward and opened double doors, through which Ranofer and Ranofer stepped into a spacious room, radiant with light and thronged with people. After the first instant, Ranofer saw none of them except one, a woman. She was small and slender, with wide carven cheekbones, eyebrows like black wings, and a full downward curving mouth. She stood tense and still in the very center of the room, and on her forehead reared the golden cobra of Egypt. Ranofer's knees gave under him. He knelt and touched his head to the floor. As he did so, he heard the queen's voice, abrupt and husky, with a peculiar timbre like a young boy's. "Is this the one, Ranofer?" "Aye, your radiance." "I thought you meant a big boy. This is only a child." "Nevertheless, your majesty—" "Hush! Tell him to rise." "Rise," hissed the dwarf, nudging Ranofer with his toe. Almost paralyzed with awe, Ranofer managed to obey. The queen studied him a moment. "What is your name?" she asked. "Ranofer, the son of Thutmose, majesty," he whispered. "Come here, Ranofer." Again he obeyed. On quaking legs, the queen seized him by the shoulders, peering into his face. "You told my dwarf there are thieves in the tomb of my parents. Why do you say this thing?" "It is true, your majesty. They are here." "They are there. How do you know, then?" "I followed them, majesty. I saw them. They have dug a secret entrance." "So you say," the queen said softly. She was searching his face with a fierce intensity, and her fingers had tightened on his shoulders. The gruff voice of a noble behind her spoke. "Your majesty, I beg you, calm yourself. It is extremely unlikely that this boy was anywhere near the precious habitation. Boys are given to inventing wild tales with themselves as heroes. It is really too difficult to believe." "I know all that." The queen straightened and loosened Ranofer's shoulders without taking her eyes off his agitated face. "Still, it is not possible. I must be sure he is lying. If he is—" "Oh, please, I am not," Ranofer broke in. "I know—" "Silence!" the dwarf hissed from somewhere behind him. "Wait till you are questioned." "Nay, let him speak." The queen obliterated the dwarf with a gesture and nodded to Ranofer. "Go on." "I know the men," Ranofer finished in a humbler tone. "I know them. One is my half-brother, the other his friend. They have been stealing before this. I found a golden goblet in my brother's clothes chest. It bore the name of Thutmose the Conqueror." He stopped in a strange sound, as a strange sound swept the room, as if everyone in it had drawn a sharp breath at once. The queen's eyes had widened. She leaned forward and grasped his shoulders again. "Where is the goblet now?" she demanded. As Ranofer hesitated, aghast at the trap he had made for himself, she gave him a sudden little shake. "Where is it? Speak." "It is in my brother's stone-cutting shop, in the scroll room, but it is hidden. I do not know where he has put it. I cannot find it. That is why I had to wait and follow. Oh, please believe me. Send someone to the valley. They will see it is true. Let them test everything I have said." "Hush, let me think." The focus of the queen's eyes changed. She looked into his face a moment, then abruptly back at Ranofer. Her fingers dug fiercely into his shoulders, but her strange, boyish voice was quieter than before. "Ranofer, the son of Thutra, I will test your memory instead. I am going to ask you a question. If your tale is true, you will be able to answer it. Do you understand?" "Aye, your majesty," Ranofer breathed. "Very well. What was the object leaning against the north wall of my parents' burial chamber?" Ranofer's brain whirled helplessly. The north wall? North? He had lost all sense of direction in that crooked black passage. He groped for some starting point, some means of getting his bearings. The crevice. Was the eastern hill at his back or to one side of him when he plunged down that hole? He had no notion. The rock pile? His attention had all been on Gaboo, and later, on that vulture. He had not given a thought to north or south. All around him he could feel the skeptical glances, hear the unbelieving silence as a room full of great ones. Nobles, courtiers, the daughter of the sun herself, waited for the proof of his tale. And he could not give it. He had failed. He would be dragged off to the darkest prison in Egypt, and the good little dwarf along with him. Suddenly, something burst open in his memory, and his mind cleared. "The coffins," he thought. "How could I be so stupid? Do not all coffins point west, toward the land of the gods? Stay now, get it straight. If the coffins faced west, the north wall would be..." He raised his eyes to the probing, fierce ones of the queen. "Majesty," he whispered, "it was your father's oaken staff." There was an instant of profound stillness. Then the queen's hand slid from his shoulders and flew up to cover her face. "He speaks the truth," she cried. "Fetch soldiers. Send them to the valley. Make haste, make haste." There was a swirl of movement in the room. Voices rose in excitement. The gruff-voiced noble strode swiftly to the door, jerked it open, and went out, followed by several others. A graceful young man wheeled and began giving orders to 3 servants who stood along the rear wall. When they had bowed and hurried through a different doorway, he turned back to the queen. She had sunk into a chair someone had placed for her, bowed her head in her hands. Several exquisitely clad ladies were already bending over her, as well as an old man with a rich gold collar around his neck. Everyone seemed to have forgotten Ranofer. He had forgotten himself. He was standing exactly where the queen had left him, watching with wide eyes the hasty goings and comings of these great ones, which he himself had set in motion. He might have remained where he was for hours had he not felt a touch on his arm and turned to find Ranofer at his side. "Come, it is not fitting for us to be here now." The dwarf jerked his head toward the antechamber, and Ranofer went with him hastily, turning hot with embarrassment at his own presence. A blemish of rags and dirt, unsightly scratches in this beautiful shining room. They had almost reached the door when a peremptory voice stopped them. "Wait, Ranofer." They looked around to see the graceful young man coming towards them. "Go to her majesty," he told the dwarf. "She has a command for you." As Ranofer pattered away on his short legs, the young man returned to Ranofer. His manner was impassive and assured, his bearing a noble's, but his eyes were warm and intent. "I am Count Zobek, chief cupbearer to the queen," he said. "Come with me. I wish to ask you a question." He led Ranofer into the antechamber and across it to a bench standing by one of the linen-hung walls. There he motioned Ranofer to take a seat, and after a glance toward the door of the outer passage, through which people were still rushing in and out, he sat down beside him. "Now, tell me all you know about this goblet," he said. "It was gold," Ranofer began timidly. He was very awed by this splendid young man, with a silver rim and stem. "It had the same name of the conqueror inscribed on the bowl. I saw it." "You are sure? You can read?" "Only a little, Excellency, but I am sure. I will write the pictures for you, if you wish me to. Then you can summon a scribe." "Nay, you have proved yourself truthful. If you are sure, I believe you." Count Zobek glanced again toward the passage. He seemed to be impatiently awaiting someone. And you found the treasure in your brother's clothes chest? Why did you not take it then? Ranofer explained, and under the Count's close questioning described how he had returned the next day to find it gone, later following Gaboo to the shop only to lose track of the bundle of shenties entirely. So you believe it is still there, hidden somewhere in the shop? I do, in the scroll room, but I have looked and looked for it. There are only shelves and a cupboard. I do not know where he could have put it, Excellency. Perhaps we can find out, the Count said softly. This time when he glanced toward the passage, he beckoned quickly to two men who had just come in. Ranofer recognized one of the servants and the Count had sent on some errand earlier, the huskier one, a man with thick shoulders and a heavy neck. The other was a burly fellow in a helmet who carried a chariot whip dangling from one hand. These men, the Count said to Ranofer, are of my household retinue. I want you to tell them exactly how to find your brother's stone-cutting shop. Ranofer's heart beat fast with joy. The beautiful golden goblet was to be rescued. It would never be melted or smuggled away downriver in some smelly ship's hold, or sold in the marketplaces of Crete or Mycene to ignorant barbarians, if it were still there, wherever Gaboo had put it. You must go to the street of the stonecutters, he told the men, stammering a little with eagerness. Walk west from the wide road that runs beside the Nile, and after a time you will pass a wine shop and a wooden pig's head hung before it. The stone-cutting shop is only a little way further, on the opposite side. You will know it by a great chunk of black granite standing beside the door. Aye, and the thatch on the left side is loose. It flaps in the wind, but the door will be latched and sealed. That need not trouble us, little one, remarked Count Zobek. And the scroll room, where is that? At the rear of the shop. The Count rose and faced his men. There is a roll of old linen in the scroll room with a golden goblet inside. I want it found. Tear the room apart, brick by brick, if necessary. Pay close attention to a cupboard against one wall. You had best pry it loose first of all. It may be a false back. Go now, make haste, but do not return without that goblet. The men bowed and left, almost running. Ranofer did not see them go. He was gazing up at the Count's calm face. What is it, boy? Why do you look so? A false back to the cupboard. Aye, it is just like Gaboo. Why did I never think of it before? The Count looked at him a moment, then smiled. Perhaps because you have never had a fortune to hide, he said, or a greater one to gain. His smile twisted slightly, in a way Ranofer did not quite understand, and he turned away, motioning for Ranofer to wait where he was. At that moment, Ranofer appeared in the door of the Queen's room and approached them, strutting. You have finished with this boy, Excellency? I have, Ranofer. Then come with me, Ranofer. The dwarf smiled and puffed out his cheeks importantly. I have orders concerning you. Some hours later, Ranofer stood on a balcony of the palace, watching the sun sink and the long day draw close. The flooded Nile was once more dotted with ferry boats, bringing the weary merrymakers back to their homes in the city of the dead. Ranofer no longer envied them their day of feasting. He himself had feasted on roasted waterfowl and honey cakes. He had rested on down-filled cushions in a beautiful room. He had had his scratched legs bandaged by the finest surgeon in Egypt. Now, freshly bathed, reeking with scented oils and dressed in a shenty of fine linen and a snowy headcloth, he waited, as he had been told to do, for a summons from the Queen. The sky was flaming when the door of the room behind him opened, and Ranofer beckoned him imperiously. The little man wore golden earrings this evening, even larger than the silver ones, and he was swaggering with pride. The thieves were captured, he announced, in the shaft below the crevice, just where you said they would be. The gold and jewels they carried were brought back to the precious habitation, and all has been set in order. It was a great thing you did for Egypt this day, reckless one, you and I, Ranofer of Abydos, for if I had not listened to your tale, all would have come to nothing. Is it not so? It is so, master. Oh, thank you for listening. Her Majesty will thank you. Her Majesty has already thanked me, the dwarf said with a broad grin, gesturing toward the enormous earrings. Now she wishes to thank you. Come. Ranofer followed him through the shining walls, wondering what Haket would say if he could see him now. Haket, the ancient! He caught Ranofer's arm. My friends, Ranofer, those I left to guard the tomb, are they safe? They were not harmed by those cursed ones? Ranofer looked at him blankly. I do not know. I did not go to the valley. I saw no friends. Oh, please, will you ask Her Majesty? Will you speak to her for me? She will listen to you. In the queen's presence, one speaks when one is addressed, said Ranofer in a chilly tone. Come along, don't stand there. The court is waiting. But the goblet, did Count Zobek find the... Make haste, I said. Ranofer made haste, but he was still bursting with questions when he entered the shining room and the presence of the queen. She bade him rise from his knees at once and come near. The old man in the gold collar stood at her right elbow. Count Zobek now stood at her left. She was smiling radiantly. Around her throat was the necklace of golden bees Ranofer had seen Zal making, and beside her, on a low carved table, stood the Golden Goblet. Its beauty seemed to light the room. Ranofer's breath escaped in a long-drawn, joyful sigh as he raised a face more radiant than hers. It is found! It is safe, he whispered. It is found and safe, thanks to His Excellency, my new High Chamberlain. The Queen glanced at Count Zobek, who bowed serenely. It will be returned to the precious habitation of my ancestor at daybreak tomorrow. And my friends, they are... Ranofer faltered. He had not been addressed. He spoke anyhow. Your Majesty, are they safe too? The Queen seemed puzzled. Your friends? Aye, a boy and an old man. They came in search of me, and I left them to guard the shaft. Oh, please, were they harmed? He broke off as the Queen turned to speak to the old noble on her right. He turned away too and spoke to someone else, who crossed the room swiftly and opened the door to the antechamber. After a moment, this last personage returned and hurried back to the old noble, who listened to an instant's murmuring and turned back to the Queen. Your Majesty, the captain of the guard reports that he saw a boy and an old man at the tomb, both sitting on the stone that blocked the shaft. They climbed down when they saw the soldiers coming. He did not see them after that. He assumes they returned to Thebes. The noble bowed low. The personage bowed lower and retired to his place. The Queen smiled at Ranofer. Your friends are safe, she said. When you leave the palace, you shall take a gift to them. Tell me, are your wounds more comfortable? Aye, your Majesty. Haket was safe. They were both all right. He would see them soon. And did my servants feed you well? Oh, aye, your Majesty. No doubt they were waiting for him somewhere now. The two of them. Haket would be dancing with excitement. Suddenly, Ranofer could scarcely wait to go to them. Then all my wishes have been carried out, the Queen was saying, excepting one. She paused and leaned forward. Her tone changed a little. Ranofer, the son of Thutra, all is well in the tomb of my beloved parents because of you and your courage. I wish to reward you. Tell me, what do you crave most in all the world? You have only to ask for it. Ranofer lifted wide, incredulous eyes. He could ask for anything? Anything? Visions of golden collars and vast palaces flashed through his mind, and then out again. He knew what he wanted. Your Majesty, he said tremulously, could I have a donkey? The Queen's eyebrows rose in astonishment. A donkey? She repeated. Aye, Majesty, if I had a donkey, I could cut papyrus stalks in the marshes, and the donkey would carry them to the sailmakers for me, and the sailmaker would give me coppers to buy bread, and I could make myself a little house in the edge of the desert, and then I could be a pupil of Zah the goldsmith, and then I would become a master goldsmith and grow rich and famous, and someday, perhaps, make necklaces for your Majesty, and... He stopped hot with confusion because all the elegant courtiers in the room were laughing. It was not scornful laughter, though, he realized an instant later. It was the laughter of surprise and pleasure. As for the Queen, she was not laughing at all. Her eyes glistened as if they had tears in them. She beckoned to the stately old man who stood near her. Lord Mira, she said softly, give this boy the finest donkey in all of Egypt, and tell Zah the goldsmith that the first necklace made by his hands of his new pupil must belong to no one but Queen T. Half an hour later, Ranofer walked through the city of the dead in his new soft leather sandals with buckles, blissfully unaware of the crowds that jostled and passed him in the fading crimson light. In his sash nestled 2 fine finger rings, set with greenstone amulets, one for Haket, one for the ancient, both inscribed with the name of the Queen. In his hand were 6 of the finest goldsmith's hammers, each of a different shape and use, and at his side walked a veritable pharaoh of a donkey, long-eared, strong, beautiful, and in the prime of life. His head still rang with the music of the Queen's praises, and his heart swelled with the knowledge that he could go tomorrow to Zah the Master and say, I have done as you told me. I have reshaped my life into another form. He rounded a corner into the thoroughfare and saw ahead of him 2 familiar figures leaning side by side against the fish docks. At sight of him, Heket gave a shout and flung up one hand, and the ancient started hobbling toward him as fast as he could come. Ranofer gripped his donkey's rope and began to run. The end.